Good morning, everyone. Get settled here. Have you ever made plans and have them be interrupted? I suspect each one has a story. From a time an illness cropped up or the weather didn't cooperate, from a time we were in a car accident or laid off. Unexpected circumstances are part of life, and they test our patience, and they create a tension in our life and in our relationships. And this is the tension that we witnessed in today's gospel. The apostles have just returned from their first missionary journey, and they are enthusiastically retelling to Jesus everything that they did, from teaching the people to curing the sick to casting out demons, just as Jesus told them to do. But even though they are exuberant, they are worn out. And so Jesus says to them, "Come away by yourselves to a deserted place and rest a while." Jesus knows the importance of rest and prayer. The apostles have more work ahead, but now they need to pause and process what they've been through. For all of us, this time of Sabbath, this time of stopping, is so necessary to reviving our soul. Jesus' plans, however, are interrupted when the crowds rush ahead to meet them before they arrive. And although the 12 were tired and needed time alone with Jesus, Jesus was not frustrated or angry that the crowd had interrupted their rest. Rather, he showed tremendous compassion, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. We often view our plans and interruptions as being in opposition. But suppose they are equally important. What if interruptions are opportunities? Opportunities to align ourselves with others and the work of God in our day-to-day life, to learn trust and patience, and to accept what is handed to us with compassion and generosity of spirit. Such is the example of the saint that we are focusing on today. Saint Pius of Pietrelcina. One of our Italians can correct my pronunciation after Mass. More commonly known and loved as Padre Pio. At the tender age of 5, he consecrated his life to Christ. And as he grew up, his path to the priesthood was hindered by poor health, as well as demonic visitations that would torment him, causing him to cry out. But despite these interruptions to his studies, Padre Pio turned his heart to the Lord through vigils and fasting. Shortly after becoming a priest, the 5 wounds of Jesus' passion appeared on his body. They're called the stigmata. That is, the wounds in his hands, in his feet, and in his side. And they were examined by numerous doctors, and they found that they were not simply superficial wounds, but rather real perforations through his flesh that would bleed constantly for the next 50 years of his life and cause him much pain. Now, incidentally, if you've ever seen a picture of Padre Pio and he's wearing what looks like motorcycle gloves, it's to cover the wounds, to hide the wounds. Through his sufferings, through his battles, and through his visions, Padre Pio knew that he was meant to conform his life to that of Christ. And as such, he became a generous source of mercy and healing. And, like Jesus in today's gospel, Padre Pio became an object of fascination and curiosity, who was often subjected to crowds of people. And as Jesus was rejected by the religious leaders of his day, Padre Pio was rejected by church leaders too. In fact, for years he was viewed with suspicion and even prohibited from carrying out any public ministry. Despite the constant interruptions, trials, and tribulations, Padre Pio maintained a spirit of obedience to God's plans. And he surrendered to the will of God as it is manifested in the unexpected circumstances, situations, and the interruptions of his life. For us, holiness is nothing other than doing what the present moment requires. That's it. Holiness is nothing other than doing what the present moment requires, as best we can understand it. It means that we aren't so rigid, that we're not willing to change when a new situation presents itself. That's how Jesus lived. Jesus didn't turn away Nicodemus when he came to him in the dark of night, nor did he ignore Jairus when he came to him as he was preaching to a crowd of people. Likewise, in today's gospel, Jesus didn't turn the boat around when he saw the crowd of people on the shore. Rather, he was fully present and faithful to the interruption that was before him. For Jesus, these were opportunities to show mercy and compassion. Interruptions sometimes, but not always, aren't disruptions to what we should be doing, but very often they can be manifestations that we need to be doing something else. Like when the phone rings and it's a family member or friend who's hurting and needs to talk. Or when a small child hurts herself and needs your care and your time. Sometimes, though, when you feel like you've got too much going on, interruptions might feel like they're going to push your anxiety to the breaking point. But it's in these moments that it's so helpful for us to remember a saying of Padre Pio. Pray, hope, and don't worry. Pray, hope, and don't worry. Padre Pio says, worry is useless, God is merciful, and will hear your prayer. With this perspective, Padre Pio was able to channel each interruption, each struggle, and ongoing suffering into love for others. It was like the more he suffered, the more good that he was able to do. And if you were to Google his name, you would see all of these miracles that abounded through his life on earth, as well as now when he lives in heaven. For us, facing challenges and sufferings and interruptions like Padre Pio is a path to holiness. Because, as Padre Pio once wrote, where there is no obedience, there is no virtue, and there is neither goodness nor love. And where there is no love, there is no God. So, consider the interruptions of your own life. Through them, how can you be faithful to where God is leading you? And through the interruptions that you face, how do you think God is trying to grow your love?